Okay, let's see, everything's good. Right. Oh, all right. We got our first viewer. Hey, George, how's it going? 1 second. Here, leave that for now. So, people are coming in. Say hi to Daisy, who's off screen right now. And say hi to Cowboy, my dog, who's also off screen. Both kind of sharing the responsibility of me being late today, but it's all good. We're here now. It's true, you did give me food. Which is why I'm snacking a little bit, so apologies for that. Hey, Rohan. Rohan Raj. That is a badass name if that's your real name. I like it. How's it going? Apologies for eating. Need to eat a little bit. I was out in the town last night. Gotta get that protein and carbs in to combat the classic California overpriced cocktails. You know, standard. What was the most expensive cocktail we had last night, Days? I think one cocktail was like $17. It's insane. Like, it's crazy. Yeah. Rohan, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I want to keep watching stuff, and that's why when people comment on my channel and recommend stuff for me, those are some of my favorite comments, because like I want to recommend things for the public, but I want them to recommend me stuff, and then I can make a video with that movie, and then that, you know, just keep sharing, just extending it. Because there's a lot of... Oh, what's up, Daisy Reyna? Broadcasting from across the room. What was I gonna say? I think there's a lot of underrated movies out there, just in general. And people say, God, movies suck so much these days, and they're kind of true in the sense that a lot of our big summer blockbusters or our big releases, a lot of like Oscar bait films, a lot of them do suck. You know, a lot of superhero films have been sucking lately. Like, a lot of, you know, movies that are supposed to be big Oscar contenders are not well written. But there are still some great things being produced. They're under the radar because they don't want to compete with the schlock that they're up against. It's a real thing. Shall I watch Twisters in cinema? So I saw Twisters, but I saw it at home. Which is not the best way to see it. So if you are interested in Twisters, I would probably recommend the cinema experience. The intro is actually pretty intense. I don't think it's a great film. I mean, I think it's a little too long. It feels a little dragged, but it's fun. It's fun. I think the biggest problem with Twisters is like, why does it exist? However, I think they did do an interesting spin on Twisters, which is, in the original film, the kind of renegades were the main characters, and the corporate science types were almost like the antagonists. And this time, it's actually switched. So, like, the corporate types are more like the main characters, and the renegades are these pretty annoying, interrupting type people. So I liked that spin on it. It's strange, right? It's like, I don't think people should spend money on Twisters. If you're gonna only see a few movies in the theaters every year, like, I don't know if I would pick Twisters to be in it, but if you are gonna see Twisters, you probably should see it in the cinema, because you kind of want that experience. Panini Productions, I remember you. So today, I had a couple ideas. So one, We could just open this up as a general kind of movie chat. We could talk about horror movies or anything else. We could also talk about topics for upcoming videos on my channel, because I actually like getting people's feedback on what videos I want to do, because I have some in the mix, some that are a bit written, half written, have been started, all of that. But I like getting feedback on what kind of ideas people find the most interesting, not just the ones that I think will perform well. And the second idea was for me to do a tier list on all the James Bond movies. There's about like 25 of them, I think, something like that. And hopefully this list is correct. I don't see anything missing, unless I'm crazy. Where's Living Daylights? Make sure that's here. Yeah, it's there. And so that was another possibility, is me just recording a tier list. I'm a little reticent on that because the last James Bond video I did really underperformed, but maybe a ranking thing will perform better. I don't know. Never Say Never Again is missing. It's actually not my face is covering it, so I know there's like no way for me, like if I reduce the size of this. What? Oh, I love the production design of some of these Bond movies. Hell yeah. So if I reduce it like this, it just kind of looks like shit, in my opinion. I mean, I could leave it like this so it's easier. But that you can see Never Say Never Again here, and you can see a little bit of No Time to Die, which is not one of my favorite Bond films. If I do a tier list on these, I'll record it. And one second, I need to, or actually I don't need to, I was gonna add a column or a row for didn't see them, but I think I've seen every Bond film. I'll add this column anyway. Yeah. No, didn't see them's good. And then you change the color. Yeah, maybe I'll leave it like this. So, Daisy brings up an interesting point. Some of the production design is really good on some of these Bond films, and to me, and again, if I end up tier listing this today, there's a particular movie with Roger Moore that I think has exceptional production design, like one of the best of the entire franchise, maybe even the best of the entire franchise. Also, I didn't want to miss your question, Panini Productions. Do you like Exorcist 3? I do. I like Exorcist 3 a lot. I actually mentioned it on one of my recent actually good horror movies lists. I talked about Exorcist 3. I think what surprised me most about that movie was oh, I lost some people. Well, that's a shame. The writing. Like, the acting was good. It was mysterious. I didn't care for the climax that much. I think it was a little silly. But I thought the writing in Exorcist 3 was much better than I was expecting. It felt like an actual cop drama with like really good back and forth banter between the two friends. I thought all that shit was great. So I'm really happy that that movie has a good reputation, that a lot of people seem to have seen it. 1 second. About James Bond movies and other stuff. Come on. Boop. Yeah, it's fair, Panini. I mean, it's not that I don't think Spectre has any good qualities. I don't think it's very good from most levels. I stand by my statement about Daniel Craig. I think it's his worst Bond performance in Spectre. I thought he was terrible. I think he was really overacting in certain sequences, and it was very out of character. I don't know what he was doing, but it wasn't like he was playing Bond anymore. And I'm not saying I want a Bond who has no emotions. I don't like. I actually like the fact that Daniel Craig's James Bond has weaknesses and flaws, but to be fair, they all do. But he was just not playing, like he wasn't playing the character. Like he was a different character. Like his mannerisms, his vocal quality, like all of it was different. And it I don't think they explained it very well why he would sound this different. I thought his performance was really bad. Oh my god, the scene with Blofeld, he was overacting so terribly. He kept stuttering and he was getting all raspy, and it wasn't emotional to me. It felt over the top. I'm like, what are you fucking doing? Yeah, I just think there were more misses than hits, but I mean, you know, that's fair. I'm glad you liked it. I saw it in theaters, and I think for me, at the moment I realized that Spectre was going to be bad was when I was about halfway through the theme song by Sam Smith. You know the song where, like, every chorus, it sounds like someone took a vice grip to his testicles? And once I was halfway through that boring fucking sequence, god damn, it's one of the worst sequences. Terrible. Just because you throw in some octopus tentacles doesn't mean it's a good sequence. Like, it was so poorly done, so bland, and just kind of stupid looking at points, especially with the skull. Halfway through, I looked over at my date and was just like, oh no. Like, oh no, this is going to be a rough one. And it was. It was too long. It was super drab. The whole government oversight subplot, so boring. And I really don't... I like Moneypenny and Q and M, but I don't like... First of all, this M is just not as good. Judi Dench is, like, the boss. But I don't like when they try to involve Moneypenny and Q this much in the plot. Also, it's weird because, like, sorry, I misspoke. I was talking about Daniel Craig overacting. He was overacting in No Time to Die. That's my mistake. He was underacting in Spectre. He was fucking asleep. He was asleep. No Time to Die was still his worst performance, but in Spectre, he was straight up like he didn't want to be there. Christoph Waltz was, like, very mid, which is so un-Christoph Waltz of him. I don't understand why he wasn't given a good performance. And I think a lot of that was just the writing. And I also thought the action scenes were boring, which were surprising because a lot of them used practical effects, which is cool. But they were just so slow, and I never felt like there were any stakes. I don't know. It didn't work. I like the opening tracking shot, though. I did like that. I think it's the first long take I've seen in the Bond film, and I think it was a nice way to open it. But yeah, the action scenes, the whole "I'm actually your brother" thing, the whole ending where he's like, "Oh, we're gonna tie up all these villains like a Marvel movie," so corny, so unnecessary. No one needed that. And then the ending, he just, like, pops a helicopter from, like, hundreds of yards away with a little pistol. It's so bad. It's just, yeah. That ending sequence was so bad. Lord. Edgar Wright should definitely direct the next movie. I don't know if that'll be interesting, right? Edgar Wright wouldn't be my first choice, and actually neither would, hey BBL, neither would Christopher Nolan, despite the fact people want him to be. I don't think I have a director I want. I don't know. I would have to think about that. There's no director, like, jumps out to me. It's like, oh, please direct a Bond film. It's not really there, you know? I don't have that. So we'll see what they do. You know, like, I know they at least at some point I know that they floated the idea of Guy Ritchie, but Guy Ritchie is just not producing as good movies now as he used to be. And he also directed the Aladdin remake, which, like, puts him in the shit list as far as I'm concerned. I love Madeline and Blofeld, although the brothers thing had mixed results. Yeah, see, I didn't like his performance. I thought he was way too pulled back. It was like, everyone was just, like, asleep. Bond was asleep, he was asleep, Madeline was asleep. Everyone was just, it was so low energy. And that even comes to, like, the visual presentation, because it's well shot, but everything is so drab and gray and faded brown. It's like, it's not good to look at. It's so, ugh. It's just like an off-putting boring looking movie, and it's so unfortunate. Because you watch anything, not even just Skyfall, but even go back to the Connery era, and you'll see, like, you'll have, like, these serious scenes that are kind of gray, but then when the plot pivots, there'll be, like, splashes of color. And I think that's really important to demonstrate in your scene, like visually show the emotion of the scene. And Spectre was just, like, this flat line visually. And it's so unfortunate. Because, like I said, it is technically well shot. There was a good director at the helm. But I found it to be really boring. It's one of the most boring Bond films I think I've seen. Hey, Vicious, how's it going? Yeah. I mean, Edgar Wright would make sense in that, like, if you were to make it back to basics, fun, silly 60s kind of Bond, I could see Edgar Wright doing it. A lot of this is going to depend on the director, the script, and the actor you choose to play Bond. Like, that's, yeah. Vicious, what are you up to, man? Maybe, since we're talking about Bond already, maybe I will record my tier list today. What would I rate Spectre out of 10? 4. Probably a 4. It's actually one of my least favorites. I don't put it below some, like, it's not as bad as, like, A View to a Kill, but I guess we'll see in a second if I start recording. But I give it a 4. Well, we'll see. We'll see what tier I actually put in, because, like, numbers and tiers, like, they feel different, right? So, hey, Mr. Fahrenheit, I was just talking to you in Discord. I had a bunch of new people join my Discord, and it was, like, got me all Twitter-pated. I was so happy. It was great to see. Hold on. I'm gonna record this. I think this would be Diamonds Are Forever. Yeah, that's not a good one. Let's get into this. Let's start talking about it. And Vicious here, who's European, has only seen 2 Bond films, and I showed them to him. And it was really interesting, because if you show... I tell people, if you want to show someone a Bond film for the first time, a double feature of Casino Royale and Skyfall is actually pretty fucking cool. It was very interesting seeing his reaction and commentary of that experience, because you get Casino Royale is like a bit more of like a standard Bond, like it's setting up the new character and it's exciting, it's a little cheesy, and you get all that, and then you have it follow up with Skyfall, which is like, it sounds pretentious, but it's like a bit more elevated, like it's shot better, it's a bit more dramatic. So I just think those two together, plus they're like the best films from Daniel Craig, right? The best Bond films. So it was a really interesting double feature. But Vicious says no, he had seen some of the older ones. The one with the guy that controlled the car with his phone. Oh yeah, Tomorrow Never Dies. That's actually one of my favorites. Very, very high on my list, actually. A lot of people don't like Tomorrow Never Dies, but I love that one. I think as far as like a standard Bond, I think Tomorrow Never Dies hits like every note perfectly. Yeah, we're gonna record this. I'm already talking about it, and a lot of this could have been in the video already. Hold on, just music's a little loud in my ears, but I don't think it's very loud for you guys. So yeah, I love Tomorrow Never Dies. Yeah, see, like that tone you guys were talking about, like silly, fun, simple enough, but still like well put together, good action. Like I feel like Tomorrow Never Dies, like that's what you want. Like it's like a really good 7 or 8 out of 10 movie. It's not too long. It has like everything you need. It's not the best, but it doesn't need to be. It's just like a perfect, sleek kind of Bond film. No, so BBL, that was from World Is Not Enough, and that sequence is fantastic. We'll get into that too. Music level is good. Okay, thank you, Vicious.
Oh, your bestie's on.
Yes, he is.
Aww.
Daisy said, oh, your bestie's on. Yeah, Vicious TNT. What's up, bro? All right, let me start recording now. Test, test, test. Test, test, test. Yeah, that works. Test, test, test. Yeah, I know, Clay. Shut up. All right. let's get started with this. Hold on, drag this up. Vicious says sup taco. I agree, George. That'd be dope. I want Bond films to experiment with the actual filmmaking more. I would like to see more kind of camera movements, long takes, you know, bird's eye views, Dutch angles, like whatever you want. Like let's start messing around with it while still keeping the spirit of it alive. That is what I want. Yeah, so anyway, let's just get the thing started. So yeah. Hey everybody. As some of you may know, I do a lot of, well, I've done a lot of Bond, how do I put this? I've done a lot of James Bond related videos on my channel, comparing Bond actors, doing top 10 lists, all the fun stuff. I've seen every single James Bond movie, and today I figured it'd be fun to do a tier list and rank them all. There's some great ones in there, there's some real stinkers, so let's see where we end up with. Well, let's see what we end up with. Yeah, let's just have some fun, get started. And yeah, let me know in the comments what other topic would be great for this kind of ranking. Ooh, I could see the Bond Wick director. I don't know if there's multiples. Directing James Bond. I'd be cool with that. Yeah, that'd be fine with me. Although I don't want Bond to feel like John Wick. Like I don't want these 20-minute long wrestle sequences. You know, like I don't want that in a Bond film, but I think they would do fine. Off topic, but will you feature Kinds of Kindness? What do you mean feature? Like talk about it? I've seen it, and I can tell you right off the bat, it is not going to make my top 10 of the year. No, but I have seen it. Could do a video about it, I guess. Who's the best Bond girl? Also, Mattyman5 Dodge. I love your guys' names. Like, all your guys' usernames are so badass. But I actually did a video about the top 10 Bond girls, and I would highly recommend you watching it. I judge them in a wide variety of aspects. It's not like some like who's the hottest Bond girl. It's not that list. It's like how are they as characters? Like, you know, how are they written into the story? You know, with their relationship with Bond, like all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, that video is on my channel. When I do these Bond videos, I try to not be influenced by iconic statuses, which can irk people for sure, like me not putting a certain Bond villain or a certain Bond girl at the top of the list because everyone else does. I don't do that because I feel like it taints the quality of the list. So, for example, I did not put Pussy Galore as #1 of the James Bond girls. Every other list on Earth does, but I didn't because I don't think she's the best Bond girl. You'd have to see the video to see which one I put #1. But I'm pretty happy with my #1. I am. I think, yeah, I think she was great. But you have to see it. What about James Mangold? Maddie, true. James Mangold, hit and miss for me. Some of his movies are not very good, in my opinion. Like, they're too long. They're not particularly inspired. But then you have other ones that are quite good. Like, I actually liked Logan. And I'm pretty sure James Mangold directed the remake of 3:10 to Yuma, which is a great Western. I would highly recommend. Lots of action, cool characters. So, I think it could work. I don't know if he'd be my first pick, though. Yeah, Mr. Fahrenheit, I said that exact same thing like 10 minutes ago. Like, normally I would say, yeah, Guy Ritchie. He directed Sherlock Holmes and Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels. But then it's like, oh, shit. But then he also made Sherlock Holmes 2. And he also made, like, that dumb movie with Jason Statham. And he made Aladdin remake, which is, like, one of the worst films I've ever seen. And he made the, what do you call it? Ungentlemanly Warfare, which is such a dumb movie. So I think he's lost his stuff. I think he has. He's constantly trying to recapture it, like with that movie The Gentleman. But I don't think he's as good as he was. And it sucks to see. Honestly, it does. You don't like Game of Shadows? No, I don't. I thought the villain was fantastic, but I don't think the movie's well done. I think it's way too corny. The girl resistance movement thing, like that, you could have dropped all of that. I don't think it's a good film, but it does, like I said, it features a really, really strong villain. BBL, yeah, we'll get started with this in a second, but I did not like Kinds of Kindness. The problem, anytime you have a movie that's split into parts like that, where it's like 3 stories competing, it's never gonna be consistent, ever. So you're always gonna have one that's better than the other one. And with Kinds of Kindness, I thought the first segment was the best, and the middle segment was somewhat interesting, but I couldn't really understand what tone it was going for. And then the third one, I just felt was like completely boring. And that seems to be kind of the consensus with a lot of people, is that the third one's the worst. So you never want your movie to get worse as it goes on, and unfortunately, I think that's what happened with Kinds of Kindness. This, I don't know, it also seems kind of like Yorgos Lanthimos on autopilot. Like, of course, he's gonna make a movie about weird people being awkward with each other. Like, can you give me something else? A bit, like, he did such great work on The Favorite and The Lobster. You know, Poor Things was wild, but this one was like, there's something kind of low effort about it. I don't know. And it's okay if you want to make just like a short, sweet, simple film, but Kinds of Kindness is like over 2 hours. It's so long. So, I don't know. It's long, but I don't think it has the same amount of depth as his shorter films. It's kind of a problem. Ooh, Matthew Vaughn would be interesting. Layer Cake. Fun fact, Maddie Man. Layer Cake is how Daniel Craig got the role of James Bond. That was like, without doing it intentionally, Layer Cake was like Craig's Bond audition tape. In fact, there's a scene in the film where he has a silenced pistol just like this. But it was based on his performance that got him the Bond role. It was very controversial at the time because he was blonde. Bond was never blonde. Yeah, exactly, Maddie. Yeah, exactly. All right, so yeah, let's do this thing. No particular order. All the Bond films. I'm pretty sure this is right, but let me know if any are missing. Maybe I should move some of these around so I can end the video on like a cooler note or something. Oh, there's like, I feel, you know what? Let's order these. I feel like we should put them in order. No, maybe not. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think I should put them in chronological order? I feel like it might be better that way. Let's do it that way. Let's organize these in chronological order. You're at the end. You're like here somewhere. You're here. Some of these I can't even read. That's Thunderball. So you're over here. You're there. Spectre's here. Skyfall. Quantum. Casino. Let's see. God, the writing on these is so tiny. That's what I don't like about some of these Bond posters. It's like there's so much shit just jammed into it. You can barely read the title. Yeah, you're here. Where's Die Another Day? Where are you, you piece of shit? There you are. Okay. I think World Is Not Enough was after Tomorrow Never Dies. Goldeneye. And then Timothy Dalton. Where are you, Living Daylights? I just saw you. Oh my god, I'm losing my mind. Where is it? Am I crazy? Here it is. And then View to Kill. Cool. 1 second. Alright, just making sure. Okay. View to Kill C tier? That's generous. No cheating? What do you mean? I've seen them all. Golden Gun, Live and Let Die is here. Golden Gun was the second one, I think. Oh, I should remember the order? I think I do. Because From Russia with Love is where all these posters look exactly the same. Goldfinger. Thunderball was after Goldfinger. And then I think you only... God, some of these titles are so generic. I think it was You Only Live Twice. Yeah, that was Connor. That was when they tried to make him look Japanese. Whoo, boy. Diamonds are forever. Where are you? Where's Diamonds? Oh, it's here. Okay, I think that's Connery. Never Say Never. It was released at the same time as On Her Majesty's Secret Service, so we'll do like that. God, I cannot read this. What is this one? Must be one of Moore's. This is For Your Eyes Only, which was after A Spy Who Loved Me. I think Moonraker is between these. Where's Octopussy? Here. Ugh. Yes, that is the name of a Bond film. I think we're good. Goldfinger's before Thunderball? Yeah, I know. Why? I must mess that up. Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, You Only Live Twice, Diamonds Are Forever, Our Majesty's Secret Service, Never Say Never Again, Live and Let Die, Man with the Golden Gun, Spy Who Loved Me, Moonraker, For Your Eyes Only, Octopussy, Redo Kill, Living Daylights, License to Kill, Golden there. I think this is right. I think we're good. Cool. Well, this is all ordered up. Sorry, I'm just eating my breakfast of Chick-fil-A nuggets and fries and Sprite. It's a healthy way to start the day. Okay. Come on. These are very chewy nuggets. So, we have everything in order. Let's just get started with the one that started it all, Dr. No. This one's actually a little hard for me to rate because what's the time for you? It's 11:30 in the morning. I'm Pacific Coast time. Let's make sure this is still recording. Excellent. So, again, when I'm doing these lists, I really try to... It can be hard when you're judging these older ones because on the one hand, I try to forgive things like bad special effects, other aspects that are dated, because they can't help it, right? Like, that's just the nature of a film being from the 60s. On the other hand, I'm not going to immediately give a film a really high grade simply because it did something first, or had one scene that was great, or the fact that it, spearheaded something. Like, that doesn't instantly get you to the top of a list. And I'm gonna be perfectly honest, I'm not a huge fan of Dr. No. I think as a first film, it's fine. It set up the character very well. Sean Connery is killing it right out of the gate. His opening sequence is still his introduction of the character. It's still the best version of the catchphrase I've ever seen in any of the Bond films. The cigarette dangling out of his mouth. It's perfect. It has not been repeated. It is the best one. That is a very small part of a whole film. I do think, again, like, as a first film, it has its formula. It's trying to play with it a little bit. Its ears are still wet, right? It hasn't had a chance to refine this formula yet. So I'm going to have to be a little harsh and give Dr. No a C, because if you sit down and actually watch this again, it's not that great. But it, like I said, it has the burden of being the first one and trying to establish all like these tropes, and some of them are fine and some of them are just kind of boring. I don't think the villain is particularly interesting. He's okay, but like he's not. I don't think the villain's as great as people say. I don't think the sequence with Honey Rider is like the most erotic moment of all time. I don't see it. It's also, she's super dubbed as well. it's there's a lot that's dated in a bad way about this film. I don't think the plot is as engaging as other ones in this franchise. So other than like the only thing I find particularly exceptional about this movie is Sean Connery, is his performance and how much he embodies this character so early. So I there's parts of this I love, but if you, like I said, if you sit down and actually try to watch this thing, you're going to be checking your phone. You're going to be checking your watch. I guarantee it. It's not that exciting of a film. But it's trying, you know? It's trying to do its thing. Oh, man. You know, maybe ordering this chronologically is a bad idea, because I'm going to get a lot of heat. I'm going to get a lot. Look, okay, this is not me just having the modern perspective. If you stick with this, you'll be surprised at what kind of ratings I give movies that critics might have, destroyed. So when it comes to From Russia with Love, known as one of the classic James Bond films, I'm actually going to give it a B. I talked about this film recently when I was comparing it to Goldfinger. My thing with From Russia with Love is, rewatching it somewhat recently, the first and second act are just not nearly as good as they should be. There's a whole sequence in Istanbul with the girl wrestling and everything. I get it. It's a product of the time. It's trying to be sexy in a very kind of like childish locker room kind of way. I'm not offended by it or anything. It's just really dumb, and it takes up a big chunk of the movie's time. There's a Turkish character in the movie who has wonderfully twinkly eyes, but he's kind of just like an exposition machine. There's one cool scene with him with a gun on his shoulder, which is very interesting. It's very fun to watch, but other than that, I found the character to be pretty boring. Like I said, basically just telling the viewer the plot as it's going on. There's some really bad dubbing. There's some silly sequences. It's also pretty bland visually for those first two acts. But then you get the third act, and it's like the whole film comes together. It becomes a different film. It becomes something truly great. It's the entire sequence on the train, which is most of the third act, is like it's like Bond meets Hitchcock. It's like North by Northwest mixed with some of the intrigue of the later Bond films. It's so cool. It's so well written. It's well edited. It's establishing that we're going to be on this train for a while, so there's this aspect of being trapped, of claustrophobia. It caps off with a really intense sort of showdown between Red Grant and James Bond. Their dialogue is already kind of vicious, and then we have the infamous train fight scene, which is perfectly rough and tough and sloppy. It's such a great part of the film, and I just wish the first two acts were as well shot or as entertaining as that last act. So for that alone, it's going to get a B, but I can't give it any higher. Yeah, I think, again, trying to be understanding that it's the 60s, but out of all the older films, I think this one probably has the worst dubbing. I mean, there's some really rough dubbing and editing in this film, and it's unfortunate. And one last thing against this one, I do like the film, but there's a helicopter sequence that is straight up stolen from North by Northwest. I mean, it's not even like trying to hide it. It's so tasteless. They should not have done that. Ugh. Anywho. Next up, Goldfinger. what many people consider the best Bond film. Well, spoiler, I guess, for the other video, I do think Goldfinger is Sean Connery's best film. It seems like all the elements that they've been refining have now been refined. They have a great villain, a great henchman, great Bond girl. The plot is good enough. Sean Connery is just as comfortable as ever in the role. So I'm going to give it an A. I'm not going to give it an S because I just don't think it reaches that bar. I don't think from a visual perspective it's that interesting, except for some certain sequences that are captivating. I did feel myself kind of nod off in the last third a bit with the planes and like kind of the fake nerve gas sequence. And while I did like Goldfinger as a kind of a buffoonish Bond villain, I liked that. I enjoyed how confident he was. He enjoys, while other Bond villains, it doesn't make sense for why they would tell Bond everything. From a character perspective, it totally makes sense for Goldfinger because he has that confidence. He thinks he's untouchable. He thinks he has the world in the palm of his hand, and he delights in telling people his evil plan. He wants an audience. It totally suits him. So, and we're going to see other villains like that later on in this video. So there's a lot of great stuff here. I mean, come on, Oddjob, how can you not love him? Pussy Galore, yes, ridiculous name, but the actress does a really good job in the role. She actually has a lot of authority in her voice and her presence, which really helps the sequences with Bond. So I'm talking about so many great things about this film. Like, why isn't it S? I'm very particular with my S's. There's some really terrific sequences, like the laser sequence, the scene at the pool, which is great. Obviously, the girl painted gold. But a lot of this, if you notice, is kind of in the first act somewhat. I don't think, or the first act, like the first half, I don't think there's anything I can really remember of the last third other than Oddjob being dispatched and Goldfinger really stupidly wiggling his way through a breach in the hull. So I don't know. I think, unlike From Russia with Love, where it kind of peaked in the third, I think this one became a bit silly and boring in the third act. There isn't that great scene. There's not that great moment, a really interesting shot. There's nothing really of that quality in the third act. So I got to give it A, but hey, I'm giving it an A. Like, don't get mad at me for giving it an A. It's still a great film, and it's the best that Connery ever reached in the character. It's a solid Bond film, you know? If you're going to recommend a really old one, like if you're going to recommend a Connery Bond film, you should definitely give this one. Yeah, Maddie, it's such a good line. Thunderball. This one's tough. I remember kind of liking it as a child, but rewatching it, this one's a little rough. I have to give Thunderball a C as well. Unlike now there's a good change and a bad change. So the good thing is that unlike some of the films prior to this, Thunderball got some of the visual language right. They understood that color is a thing. So when Bond actually goes to exotic locations, we see it. We see the poolside. There's this great shot where Bond is at a pool and he's wearing a pink shirt and there's pink umbrellas and there's like crystal blue pool water. And it's so engaging and it immediately puts you in vacation mode. And that's why I think visuals are so important, because it's a visual, like it's an emotional thing too. There's also that whole ending sequence where all the divers are fighting underwater. So we're seeing a bunch of blue and orange wetsuits kind of floating around the water, like visually very engaging. The problem is, just like that scene, the actual plot of this movie is pretty dull and overlong. That underwater fighting sequence, the fact it's underwater means it's like at half speed. It's like watching an action film, but you set it to like half speed. It's just not that exciting. I can barely even remember the plot of this now. That's probably the biggest problem with this movie. Connery is killing it as Bond as usual, but there's just nothing really particularly memorable about the villain, the girl, and especially the plot. There's not much I can really talk about this one because it's so hard to remember outside of some at least visually engaging underwater sequences. But I think the runtime is probably my biggest problem with this one. It kind of drags. You Only Live Twice. I'm gonna give it a B. We got to, address the main thing first. This has one great thing about it and one stinker. So the stinker is that they try to make Bond look Japanese. I can't think of anyone worse to look Japanese other than like maybe someone who's black. Like it's not. It doesn't look right. Someone said he looked like Spock from Star Trek. I think that's pretty accurate. It's, again, I don't hate it because it's offensive or anything. We have to keep in mind these are movies from 60s, different kind of moral standards going on, but it's silly. It's way too silly, even for a Bond film, and I don't understand even the purpose of it. I don't know what went on in the writing process there. Could have just not had it. You're not gonna make Sean Connery look Japanese. It can't be done. It's not gonna happen. And then on the other side of the spectrum, the volcano lair sequence is one for the ages. It's iconic for a reason. It's a fantastic looking set. It's very exciting. The fact that you have ninjas there, but most of them are throwing grenades, is quite unexpected. It's kind of like the quintessential evil lair and the big bombastic kind of ending with the villain. And speaking of, this is my favorite version of Blofeld. Donald Pleasance, I think, is the actor. The scar, the cat, his very eerie, not quite monotone, but still very serious voice. I think all those make the character truly intimidating to watch. And I love the fact that they kept him in shadow up to that point. I'm going to turn this down just... This one's a little loud. That's good. Thank you. Okay. Also, yeah, let me know if levels or anything like that are off. Cool. Yeah, so I can't give this one an A because, like I said, the Japanese transformation thing is stupid. I don't think the music or visuals really pop out. The Bond girls, badly dubbed, not very strong characters. So there's a little bit of sloppiness there, but for Bond being as great as always, although, some people say that he's kind of looking for the exit door. I didn't really get that sense, but I wouldn't say it's as strong. Like, the writing's not as strong in this one as in previous ones. However, I do think there's a fun car chase, and like I said, that last sequence is so great, and the villain is, so well captured. I can't give this anything else but a B. I think that's fair. I also like the opening music sequence, although I don't like when they go from strings to the twangy guitar. It's a weird transition for me. Diamonds Are Forever. I gotta drop this at D. This is gonna be short. This is just not a good film at all. It's, this always seems to happen with Bond actors. The last one is usually the worst. And that's because either the Bond actor is getting too old to do the same amount of stunts, or that he's pretty much checked out of the role, or they try to... It feels like the script or the director or the producers try to compensate for this by making it as silly and as ridiculous as possible. And it's this weird thing, right? Because like the Bond actor gets older, but then they make him sillier, in the last film, and it makes it worse. There's a level of like disrespect that goes into that, when really, and I know this might be more of a modern concept, if the actor's getting older, you should actually strip it down. You should make him more of a gentleman. You should make him use his mind more and less of his brawn, and make it more kind of like a slinky, suspenseful Cold War thriller kind of thing. And instead, they always just make him do ridiculous shit. So it's not a good film. It's very silly. The fighting is particularly bad. There's one, oh my god, there's one scene where he punches a guy off an ATV, and it's just hilarious. It's like you can see the actor like notice. You can practically see the actor see Bond at his peripheral, and he's just standing there like waiting for the hit. It's so, and it, like once he gets kicked, it's like he's got launched off by a trebuchet. It's just silly. I don't like how the Bond franchise does this, and it all started with this one. It's a D, and I don't think anyone's gonna fight me on that one. On quick nuggy break. Hey Days, how's Cowman? I have to chew. Okay, just checking Discord. Cool. Hey, Darth Vader. Wow, Darth Vader commented on my channel. Is this a real Darth Vader? Do you really hate sand that much, or have you gotten over that fear? Do you ever go to the beach? Also, hi. Welcome to the stream. We're doing a tier list of Bond. Yay! And I'm just about finished with the Connery section. Ooh, boy. Yeah, I'm going to get some real heat for this. So, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the Bond film featuring the only performance by George Lazenby in the franchise. I'm actually torn between A and S. I love this film, and I understand why directors like Christopher Nolan adore this film and found much inspiration from it. Because from a directing standpoint, this film is brilliant. The amount of experimentation that's going on in this movie, from not just like from the shots, from the compositing, sound editing, everything, it's almost masterful. And even when they screw up, like there are some editing problems in this movie, it's more like, it's not so much a sign of incompetence, it's more a sign of it just not working, of an experiment not working. This is by far the most experimental Bond film from a filmmaking perspective. I love how much they're playing around with different shots. There are so many that are still in my head, just stamped there. Like Bond, like the shot from Bond's perspective, looking through the leaves of a plant. How they use profile shots to align with the environment. I mean, the thing is just gorgeous. There's even a sequence where Bond is remembering, like Bond is haunted by what happened to Tracy, his love interest. And so they project what the scene we just saw of her onto a window next to him. I mean, it's just so visually interesting that you just can't not be engaged while watching. I mean, the plot is still interesting. I mean, the film, very early on, the Bond girl gets introduced because she tries to commit suicide, and he essentially gets hired by her dad to date her and like keep her in control. It's a very bizarre kind of setup for the two of them. But what ends up happening from there is the two of them actually start to, develop and fall for each other. Tracy Bond is one of the best Bond girls out there. She's, very well played. She's very well performed by the actress. She's an interesting character just from the outset. The two of them have great chemistry. She's definitely a stronger performer than George Lazenby, but with the scenes, she elevates his performance by being with him. She makes him better. And there's some real chemistry between them, like really kind of cutesy moments between them that you didn't really see up to this point. Everything with Connery was a bit more aggressive, and the Bond girls, outside of Galore, weren't that interesting. And they weren't normally played by particularly good actresses, but here it's like a full-fledged character and performance, so it's great seeing them together. I don't know if I can give this S. I'm so tempted to, because I do love this film. I love the last action sequence. It's so chaotic, and they keep playing with color. Like there's a whole shot that uses purple walls that you just never seen before in a Bond film. I'm just gonna keep using the word experimental over and over because there's so much to dig into from a filmmaking perspective. The only problem, and it's so unfortunate, is that kind of the middle section of this film has Bond pretending to be someone else and going to like this allergy research center that's filled with all these women from different countries, and it's like this like, and they're assassins, but it's also kind of like a Playboy mansion, and they're all like hitting on him very aggressively, and I guess it's trying to be sexy, but it just kind of comes out of left field, and it destroys the whole tone of the film that we've been building up to this point. I mean, I'm no prude. It's not the fact that, you know, he's sleeping around that bothers me. It's James Bond. It's more just what even is the subplot. It's too complicated, and the way it carries out, it's almost like the rest of the stakes of the plot have just dropped. Like everything's gone. And we're in like this little short film from a different movie altogether for this sequence. It's very out of place, and yes, it's still well shot, but Tracy Bond, I just call her Tracy. Tracy not being there, you feel it. Like, you really feel their absence. And on top of all of that, they decided, by having him impersonate someone, they decided to dub his voice. So instead of asking the actor to try on a different accent, they dub his voice, and it's so awkward. Ugh. It hurts to watch. You're watching this great movie, and then when the dub is there, you cringe. You can't do anything else but cringe. It's a real shame. I think that it stops it from being S, but I want to give it S so badly because I do love it so much for its creativity and for its strong characters. It's not my favorite Blofeld, but the actor still does a really good job. And it's funny, like, Tracy is such a good character. Like, when she's gone for that whole middle sequence, you know, you feel her absence, and then when she returns on the ice skating rink, not only is it a powerful moment because Bond actually looks scared for the first time, but when then she arrives, it's this glorious moment because not only is he happy to see her again, but you're happy because you're like, thank God you're back. Like, the past 20 minutes have been kind of shitty, so we're so happy you're back here. It's one of those things where, like, I don't give a movie like a 9 or a 10 out of 10 because it's just consistently good. I do favor highlights. If a movie tries something and actually succeeds, it's something like really, really, truly great, transcendent, even if it has some flaws and mistakes, I'll value the first part a bit more because I want a film to stick with me. I want it to give me an adventure, and even if it has some annoyances, I'm gonna praise it for showing me something I've never seen before. Oh, I'm just skipping this ahead slightly. Okay. Oh my God. You know, I actually am gonna move it up to S. I am. I do think even with its problems, the kind of heights that it reaches have still not been hit by other films in this franchise. I have to give it an S for that. Never Say Never Again. Does this even count? This was not actually by Eon Productions. I believe this came out around the same time as On Her Majesty's Secret Service. It really does feel like, hey, Panini, this one really does feel like Connery just wanted a paycheck. I mean, I thought he was just done with this franchise, but I guess they drove a truck full of money up to his house. I don't know. F? It's bad from what I remember. This is one I probably remember the least of all of these. I just remember, was this the one where, like, he's in the machine that's, like, stretching out his back, but it just looks like he's humping the table violently? No. I don't know if it was this one. It's really bad. Yeah, it's a bad one. Or Live Twice should be F. Why, Panini? I'm curious on your thoughts on that. All right. Yeah, it's bad. This one's bad. Live and Let Die. This one's a little rough. Really good stuff about this movie. Solitaire, one of the best Bond girls. I like how ornate they made her costume design, trying to capture the kind of Oracle type character that she's portraying. Movies also like Roger Moore. It's his first film. He's good in it, but there's something about it was such a weird way to start Roger Moore's run by this kind of blaxploitation, tribal African plot. It was so bizarre, but I almost kind of give it credit for coming out of the gates with something this strange. I'm so torn. I'll be nice. I'll leave it at B. Yeah, I didn't find Blofeld to be cartoonish. I actually thought he was pretty threatening. I did. I mean, he might be cartoonish to us now because we think of Austin Powers and Dr. Evil and the Cat and all that, but like I think for the time, I think it was actually a pretty solid villain. But I agree with you on the racial stuff. Like that's why it can't go higher than B for me, because the whole Japanese thing is so embarrassing. It's like that's really bad. I don't think it automatically gives it like an F though, but that's definitely points against it. Yeah, I'll live and let die at a B. I might be a little generous. I don't think the song is as great as people remember, because if you think of the song by Paul McCartney and the Wings, you think, oh, that you know, da 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 but da da, like really cool kind of riff. I think you guys are forgetting the rest of the song that just sounds like a C tier Beatles song. It doesn't fit at all. So, and I'm trying to remember if this movie introduced the stupid sheriff, one of the most worthless minor roles in the Bond franchise. There's a fine line when something's like campy and when something's just straight up stupid, and the more movies played with that line more than the other Bonds, you know, and you can even see that in this one. Like, as wild and interesting as this film is, as the setting is, it also just kind of bounces into just absurdity, and I don't know if absurdity always works for James Bond. I mean, he is a secret agent. He does have a license to kill. I don't think we should go into territory where it's just straight up stupid. I don't think that benefits the film. I'll leave it at B. Like I said, I like the villain, Moore's performance, the Bond girl, and just the sheer, you know, like insanity at certain points of what's going on. That sometimes it's stupid, sometimes it's just interesting. It's like a B minus, but I'll leave it there for now. As far as action sequences, I honestly can't really remember any, so that's a mark against it. Man with the Golden Gun is the D. The only reason it's not F, because it commits the cardinal sin of any movie, which is that it's boring as hell. I think the only thing that makes me more mad than a movie being boring is a movie not caring, like not putting in any effort. Justice League, Madam Web, like that. But I wouldn't say this puts no effort. There's some effort on display in some of its writing, in the kind of psychedelic last showdown, but it's so boring. Bond films should not be boring, and this thing moves at a snail's pace. Roger Moore he hasn't captured that kind of either the steely-eyed James Bond or the kind of like sexy, you know, the what do you call it? I'm blanking here. The kind of sexy cavalier agent either. So he looks like he just kind of got hit over the head and is wandering through the film. I'll tell you why it's not F though, and I think everyone who's seen the film knows where I'm going with this. Christopher Lee as Scaramanga is awesome. One of the best Bond villains, easy. He's basically Bond if evil. And normally I don't like this in movies where the villain is essentially the main character. Black Panther suffered from this, where the villain's just, oh, it's the same bad guy suit, but this one's yellow. It's so dull to me, even if the performance is good. So this was also a problem in Ant-Man. I've seen this problem with other action films as well. However, sometimes that can work because you start to dig in more to the character. And Scaramanga is essentially Bond if he didn't have a moral compass. And I find that fascinating. It's like you get to see just how effective Bond could be. Like, you get to see how effectively evil Bond could be if he was an asshole. And that's what we see in Scaramanga. He is, and not only that, like, he's better for a lot of the film. Like, he's smarter than Bond. He's more resourceful. You know, he isn't distracted by sex, which Bond very much is, because he has this, you know, blonde dead weight with him for the most of the film. Like, I'm sorry, I don't think she's a very good Bond girl. I think she's just like a liability. So yeah. So that drags down the film too. Like, it's Bond. He's stuck with Laura, liability for most of the film, kind of wandering around. But every scene with Scaramanga, you're just kind of like marveling at him, and it makes sense that, you know, Christopher Lee would play him, because Christopher Lee, he knew the writer of the James Bond books. He was in the military as well. He did some clandestine missions that Peter Jackson mentioned. He knows what it sounds like when you stab someone in the back. True story. So yes, it is vicious. Yes, it is. Shush, man. It really is something. I don't know if they were deliberately trying to kind of be meta or flip things on the head, but the scene where he's talking with Scaramanga at the table, I don't know, it's so interesting to me, because it's normally a scene where, like, Bond would, you know, the villain thinks he's in control, but then Bond pulls some trick out, and then, like, he has his cool moment. But in that scene, Bond thinks he's the one in control, and Scaramanga is the one who's slowly actually building a gun right in front of him, and then has him at gunpoint. So in many cases, for most of the film, the roles are reversed. And I love that aspect of it. So everything with Scaramanga, from writing to performance, is fantastic in Man with the Golden Gun. Everything else, dull as dishwater, and there's no reason to watch it. Just watch the Scaramanga scenes on YouTube or something. I don't think watching the whole film is worth it for that. Yeah, Panini Productions in my chat brings up a good point, that I gave On Her Majesty's Secret Service like a 7 out of 10, but I'm putting it at S here. Ratings change. The more I think about On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the more I want to give it an 8. And sometimes 8s make it to the S tier for me. It's hard when I'm comparing numbers and letters like this. I don't know. I try to just attack each one kind of fresh, not think about numbers, not think about previous ratings. So I don't know. Is it more fitting at A? Probably. I might even move it, but it's just, like I said, the amount of imagination that On Her Majesty's Secret Service employed is something to celebrate, and I think that's why I'm putting it at S. All right, the third film by Roger Moore, The Spy Who Loved Me, gets an A. I really like this film. Daisy was talking about earlier in chat how she really likes the production design. She's actually a production designer, so she knows what she's talking about. She was, praising the production design of this film. I think this film might have the best production design of any Bond film. It is spectacular. It is so sleek and cool looking. I love the fact that the film actually has a color scheme, which is this kind of chrome laminated wood and dark, like navy blue, which fit perfectly with the naval theme. Everything has to do with ships or underwater sea creatures, so we have that theme in the story, and the visuals complement it perfectly. Roger Moore is fantastic. This is probably his best performance. It's one of his best performances. He's charming when he needs to. He's very serious when he needs to as well. I like seeing Roger Moore not play Mr. Campy. He's great when he has to be someone who I believe has actually murdered people. I think it's a role. It's the kind of persona I wish they had him do more, because he can do it. He has he has the presence for it. This, even though there is obviously like there's some silliness in this movie, it's a crazy it's like this crazy outcast who I still think looks like Fraser Crane wants to kind of rebuild society at the bottom of the ocean with this octopus-shaped lair. I mean, yeah, there's parts of this that stretch reality, and of course you have a henchman with steel teeth named Jaws who attacks people like Frankenstein. So you have some camp in there, but when it comes to the actual story and a lot of the dialogue, there's a certain level of it being grounded and it being sleek, just picking a few things to do well and just excelling. I think this is the most uncluttered of Roger Moore's films. It's not as crazy as Live and Let Die. It doesn't have as many side characters as For Your Eyes Only. It moves quick. It looks great. Like I said, the production design is stunning. It almost like many of the shots just look like the cover of like GQ or Men's Magazine or something. Like you actually want to go there. You want to lounge with these people. The inside there's this big action scene that happens inside the lair, and I'm pretty sure that it was prepped by Stanley Kubrick, and that's why there's like this, I don't know, it's like just like this extra level of polish on it. And yes, like the action sequence, it's crazy, and there's explosions and even like some silliness, but that interior looks amazing. I mean, it really do feel like you're in like the belly of a sea creature. So up to this point, I've never seen a Bond film where the production design and the sets and the color so well aligned with the plot itself and the themes. This was just the definition of sleek. I would highly recommend it. I think it's Roger Moore's best film, and I'm giving it an A. Moonraker. How the hell do you rate this movie? Because on the one hand, it's very stupid. On the other hand, it's kind of fun stupid. So it's like, where do I put you, Moonraker? Because we just had this great thriller with The Spy Who Loved Me, right? And then we have a movie where a bunch of astronauts are in space shooting lasers at each other. Clearly inspired by the success of Star Wars, which I always hate. I hate when films can't be their own thing. They're constantly looking over what their neighbor is doing, trying to copy their test. So that bugs me. I'm gonna leave it at C. There's obviously, like, even outside the stupid laser shit, that has one of my favorite Bond moments where they're playing, they're doing skeet shooting and he picks off an assassin. One of Roger Moore's coolest moments for sure. But this film is dumb. So, what can I say? Like, how can I even like deep dive into this movie? I challenge someone to do a serious video essay about Moonraker, because like you can put in all the beautiful orchestral music you want, into your video essay. It's gonna still sound really ridiculous that you're gonna dive in and try to overanalyze this thing, because it's dumb. It's like Jaws has a love interest, and we're gonna use nukes again. We're gonna go into space. Totally unrelated to Star Wars, I swear. Pinky swear. It's just absurd. The whole, like, it's such a silly movie. And this is really, for me, it was kind of like the beginning of the end for Roger Moore. I mean, he did put out a good film after this, which we'll get into, but it was this shift from the late 70s to the 80s, this shift of, we're gonna make it as bright and campy as possible. And I do think Bond is all about balance. That's why the role is such a challenge, right? Because we have to buy a character who's suave but is tough, who's sexy but also just like a true gentleman. Like we want Bond to be all these things, and by that by that rule, the film has to be all those things too. The film has to be exciting but sexy but smart but a little campy. Like that's a lot of balancing to do. And you have something like The Spy Who Loved Me, which I think balanced it very well. A movie like this, just like, this isn't so much like a seesaw of balancing. This is a fucking catapult. I mean, it goes so far into the campy area that you almost can't even call it the Bond film. And I know some people, whether truthfully or ironically, love when Bond films got this ridiculous. I don't. I don't. I saw this as a kid, and even then, I thought this was kind of silly. Although, even I liked it a little bit more because, like, ooh, lasers. But I can't. I think C is the right place for this because it's fun bad, but it's still kind of bad. All right, For Your Eyes Only, I'm gonna give a B. I think we're certainly back on track with this one. Moore is giving a good performance. There's some really interesting action. I think one of my favorite scenes in this movie, and one of my favorite Bond sequences ever, is when Bond is climbing a rock face, and he's climbing the cliff, and as he's ascending, an assassin is knocking out all of his holds on the mountain. There's no music. It's incredibly tense. Apparently Roger Moore did some of it, and he actually drank tequila beforehand because he was so terrified, and I don't blame him. It's incredible how we go from a film where they think the best way to excite an audience is to have people like have a space battle, and then here at least I was just as entertained, if not thrilled, watching him climb a cliff because of its context, because of how procedural it is and how tense it is, how they ramp it up and escalate. At one point Roger Moore uses a trick where you use a shoelace to create your own foothold. And not only is it really exciting to watch and incredibly intense, but it shows how, it shows Bond's ingenuity, which is one of the reasons we love James Bond. So there's some really cool action. The Bond girls, cool on paper, love the crossbow, but like many Bond girls of this era, she sounds very dubbed and has zero facial expression. I'm pretty sure she was a drawing half the time. So, there's that. It does get my main problem with this film is there's definitely too much going on. There's another love interest who's like this totally nuts young girl who's a figure skater making admittedly very funny blowjob jokes. He gets chased by a biathlete. There's a bunch of like hockey players that he beats up on a rink. There's just too much. There's too much going on in this film to where the villain can't shine, Bond can't really shine. Like no one can poke through because there's just too much on the plate. That being said, though, I think the intro is great. The story starts, at least for me, like I was very engaged with how the story started. The stakes were well set up. It just got a little bit too hectic as it went on. So overall, I do think it's an enjoyable film with some great moments of promise. So I'm going to give it a B. This one's a little too sad. There we go. All right. Octopussy. Someone I know did a video about why this is kind of like underrated. Some people really have fond memories of Octopussy. They think it's the right amount of camp and silliness and fun. I fucking hate this film. And like I said, I can handle some camp. I at least gave Moonraker a C. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Octopussy is an F, and I know some people are going to turn off this video just by me saying that. That's fine. We all have our contentious opinions. If I had no contentious opinions, this video would be pretty boring. It's bad. Like the film before, there's way too much going on, but this is worse. Some of those embarrassing Bond moments are in this film. He dresses as a bear. He dresses as a clown. He makes a Tarzan yell. It's just chaos. Like this whole movie is chaos, but it's not well-conceived chaos. It's not well shot. There's really terrible editing. The action scenes lack logic. Way too many characters. The female lead, who actually is named Octopussy, she's a terrible actress. There's just nothing on her face at all. She doesn't seem to understand what voice inflection or facial expressions are. There's too many characters to keep track of. All the action scenes are ludicrous, and I don't think are even that impressive from a filmmaking standpoint. The ending is just a bunch of gymnastics. Why? Q is with Bond on the hot air balloon, and there's another scene where like elephants are running around. It's complete lunacy. It is, but it's also not that exciting because how do you make a movie that takes place in India and have so little like color? There's nothing standing. Everything's just like this flat. And I know they probably shot there, but there's nothing. There's no like interesting close-ups or anything of the culture. The music is practically unnoticeable. I mean, there's just nothing. Like you might as well you could just set it anywhere else, except you wouldn't be able to use tigers and elephants in your film, because I know when I see a secret agent thriller, action film, what I want to see is a bunch of animals running around. That's my priority. It's just silly. I think Roger Moore, like the things they make him do is just so humiliating. I don't, and there's moments where he's trying his best, but he's not giving a good performance, and he's given such stupid things to do. It's awful. There's only one scene where you feel like it's a Bond film in the sense where like it's actually tense and people are speaking like human beings and not just yelling around in the forest. And that's when he's playing a game against the main villain. The main villain also I found to be a little boring, but at least that sequence, it's like classic Bond where these two guys are facing off. It's not really about the game itself. It's about them trying to size each other up. So you have a scene like that, but the rest of it, it's just noise. It's just a lot of yelling and barking and just mania. And I know that might sound fun, and some people enjoyed for that. But when you have that for 2 hours, and it's like not even really well shot, then like why am I watching this? I can't. I did kind of like one of the villains. I stand by that he sounds like Willem Dafoe mixed with Christoph Waltz. He is kind of over the top, but I do like his plan. I enjoyed his dialogue, and I could actually believe that some post-war officers would try to do something similar, trying to recapture those glory days. And I appreciate the fact that he actually got the last word in. Even though, spoiler, I guess, like the villain dies, but in his mind, he died a satisfying death, and that's not usually something a Bond film will give a villain. So, I'm trying. I'm trying to think of some positives of this movie, but some of the stunt work is somewhat impressive. The villain was engaging, but this is just terrible. It's so stupid, and the stakes are so poorly communicated, and there's so many goddamn characters. None of them are particularly interesting to watch, except for like a couple. And once we get to like the lead, like once we get to the female lead that this movie is named after, the whole pacing just drops. I mean, it plummets. Oh my god, I forgot that Bond dressed up as a gorilla at one point. Oh my god. God. What were they thinking? So terrible. I know. And like I said, it's all about balance. Balancing the camp with the seriousness. If you're doing nothing but camp, I can't even call you a Bond film. I can't. Like, you're not a secret agent anymore. You're a clown. And this time you literally dressed as one. Octopussy's Neff. Fight me on it. It sucks. This is like one of my least favorite. And the song is terrible. The theme song is so boring. Boy. I have not a long time have I seen something as pathetic as them trying to get the octopus theme and the girl, and it's a mess. The film is a complete mess, and this screenplay need to be rewritten. Stat. All right, View to a Kill. Gotta put this one as F as well. This is a terrible Bond film, and I think most people put it at the bottom of their lists, and there are good reasons why. The The plot goes in very strange directions and not ones that are particularly entertaining. There's a lot of the action scenes, while they're better than Octopussy, are still way too silly for their own good and also don't make a lot of logical sense. There's a lot of choppy editing in this movie. Not as bad as Octopussy, but still pretty bad. We'll cut to very odd and goofy reaction shots in the middle of the action. Completely unnecessary, but a product of the time. The Golden Gate sequence is really the best example of how Roger Moore's advanced age was a problem at this point. The cuts to stuntmen are more obvious than ever. If there's I don't like the Bond girl. You may recognize her from that 70s show. Man, when I was comparing these two movies, it was so hard to choose a winner for some of these categories. I don't know. She looks like she just got a lobotomy. I don't know what to tell you. She's acting like the character she's playing in that 70s show. Like, it's almost like her character in that 70s show was spoofing how kind of brain dead her character was in this film. Another Laura liability, and unfortunately this one really just drags it down. This film also gets docked some points for having the Bond catchphrase be chopped in editing. That's like, come on, like that's a rule. You don't break that. Oh, geez, BBL, yeah, be careful with that one. There are a couple things I like about this film. First of all, love Christopher Walken as a Bond villain. He is actually able to balance the camp and seriousness of the movie. You know, his pauses, his eerie kind of smile. He is actually intimidating to watch. However, he's still pretty campy at points. I don't like where they take him in the last act where he starts machine gunning people. Even the actor, I think Roger Moore even said like that really displeased him that they had the villain do that. It doesn't seem like Bond. It felt like a different movie entirely. So, but otherwise, like, I do think Christopher Walken does a good job. I love the Mayday character as well. I like that the two of them feel like partners in their venture. They just love being evil, and they're both good at it, and they're both well matched. They seem like they actually have chemistry. They're a great couple. They just happen to be evil. So I loved everything with them. So villains are strong. I love the sequence at the stables. Real kind of old money atmosphere going on that puts Bond on his heels a bit. Still, yeah, one sequence and a couple good villains aside, this is a terribly shot and edited film. Hey Alex, how's it going? It's too silly. It's not as silly as Octopussy, but it's a bit more boring. It's bad. This is definitely one of the worst, and I understand why people hate it. I do think it has some stronger qualities than Octopussy. I think, like I said, the villains really help this become more watchable, and I love the sequence at the stables, like I said. But especially once we get to San Francisco, this thing just falls apart. The action scenes are so poorly edited and directed. And once we get to the Golden Gate, like, all you can do is just laugh because of how stupid it is. Even the flooding sequence, which I'm sure was hard to organize on set, and it's supposed to be impressive, but you're not really, I don't know, like, I don't think the stakes were very well communicated, so I didn't really care what was even happening at this point in the film. It's bad, and it's a really unfortunate way for Roger Moore to leave the series like this. Quite undignified, but you know what? At least he didn't dress as a goddamn gorilla. F is too low? I disagree. Where would you put it? C? Get out of here. No way. Alex, I know, but we were talking about Bond already, so I figured why not, right? Let's just get into this. I gotta start speeding up my pace. Living Daylights. Here's the problem with Living Daylights. I'm gonna get so much shit. I'll leave Living Daylights at B. I almost gave it C because I think like the end of this film with the Mujahideen, while interesting to see us actually considering Afghans as like the good guys, because this was pre 9/11. This was actually when we were funding the Mujahideen against the Soviets. So it was interesting as like kind of a time capsule moment. But I don't think the sequence is fun. I don't think I don't think horses lend themselves well to Bond movies. I don't think they've ever been a part of a good action scene in a Bond film. So there's that. However, while I didn't like, I would say, I didn't like the last third of this film. I did kind of get a laugh at how Bond seemed to forget there was a bomb on board. Like, he barely defused that thing. Like, this is a pretty irresponsible Bond. I'll give it a B because I think the first act is really strong, and I have a feeling that Ian Fleming, the writer of the books, probably would have loved the first act of this film because finally, like especially after all the nonsense of Octopussy and Moonraker, we have a Bond who actually seems like a secret agent. He's meeting with he's meeting with a co-patriot who like gives him his gun that he builds, and it's all kind of, it's slow, but it's not. It's going at a good pace. It's a slow pace, but it's not dragging. It's just very procedural. One thing is leading to another, right? It's not flying by because they wouldn't make sense, right? This is all about espionage. And I was like, we have this opening sequence, which is very exciting. And then you kind of bring it down a bit and you have this kind of anti-sniper scene. And then he transports someone through a tube. Sure, like there's moments of silliness with like the woman distracting someone. It's all very dumb, but the I don't know, for that entire first act, I felt like I was still watching a Bond film, but it was very much like a different kind of shade of it that I hadn't seen in a while. Something darker, something a bit even more grounded than before, with a very much more serious Bond actor in the role. So I love the first act. I just it also, Bond's car is dope as hell. It's got to be the second best car of the franchise. Like, I want that car now, the black BMW. After that point though, I don't think the rest of the film is as memorable. Like I said, the last action scene, as much as there is going on, I didn't find it very entertaining or even easy to follow. I liked one of the villains who utilized a lot of traps in the finale, which I did appreciate, and I kind of want more Bond villains to use traps in their arsenal. It seems like a winning combo. There's some good music as well. Like, there's so many good things about this film, but the reason it's not A is because I think the pacing suffers in the middle of this film. I don't like the last action scene, but a very strong start to this film. And I think Timothy Dalton, while, yeah, sure, he's not everyone's favorite Bond, he lacks some of that suave, he lacks a little bit of that campiness that sometimes we kind of want. But as far as just playing someone who I buy as a secret agent, I think he did a really good job. So I'm gonna give it a B. I think the larger scale action sequences actually aren't as interesting to me. But the more espionage style ones, I think, were performed beautifully. License to Kill, I'm also going to put this at B. License to Kill is interesting because it's kind of like Bond mixed with Miami Vice. Very 80s. I love that Bond and the main villain have a bromance thing going. He even like wakes him up in the morning and like practically bringing him breakfast in bed. It's actually kind of adorable. So I love the villain in this. They actually show just how brutal he is to his like female love interest / slave, I guess. She's kind of his girlfriend. She's kind of his hostage. But normally a James Bond film would kind of imply how he mistreats people, around him, especially women. But here they actually show it, and it's a bit hard to watch. But we also get a lot of comedy from this character. Like I said, his whole relationship with Bond, they were so fun together, and they had such a great rapport. And it was just a good vibe seeing these two guys hang out that I legitimately wanted Bond to leave the mission and just be a bad guy and join with this guy. I really did. I felt like it would have been so crazy and they would never do it, but I wanted that to be the rest of the film. I would have been fine with that. There's a really stupid sequence in this movie where they're at a like kind of a dive bar and people are hitting each other with swordfish, and like it starts tense, but then it just escalates into complete stupidity, and that is going too far into campy town for me. Especially when, look, if you want your Bond film to be campy, like at least be somewhat consistent, like in something like Moonraker, and even in Octopussy, although they went way too far. But License to Kill, it's still fairly realistic and grounded, somewhat, but then you have that sequence and it just comes from a different movie entirely. Like that looks like a music video for the Dixie Chicks. I don't know why it's here or what even got accomplished. I mean, like they blow like a Looney Tunes hole in the wall with a shotgun. It's and like they escape out of it. There might as well be a slide whistle in that scene. It's dumb. Also, whoever decided to give Timothy Dalton that hairstyle should have been fired. I don't know how they fucked that up from one movie to the next that badly. I guess it's 80s. I don't know. It looked really, really bad. One female love interest, not very engaging. The other one really interesting in a red flag, haunted, trouble the moment you meet her kind of way. So she was a pretty interesting character. I also don't like the ending to this film. It almost comes across like a cheesy Lifetime romance movie moment or something where the music swells and he jumps in the pool. They're all frolicking. I'm like, didn't he just kill a bunch of people like a few minutes ago? It doesn't quite fit. So the tone of this is a little wishy-washy, but for some very strong, memorable characters, I think this one deserves a B. Hey, babe. You want a nuggie? Well, you have to put your hand in the camera first. No, come on. Okay. Oh. Here, I'll give you a big one. She's shy. I'm trying to get her to say hi on stream, but she won't do it. No. Meow. Yeah, but, in terms of wishy-washy tone, like, I think a great example of this is there's a sequence where he is... he's constructing a sniper rifle, just like in the previous film. He set up plastic explosives. He's monitoring characters through a window. So it's kind of like an assassination sequence. It's really cool. It's very tense. You can feel it kind of building energy. And then ninjas pop out of nowhere and start like a whole fight scene. And you're like, what the fuck? What was this? Like, you had this great thing. It's not like I hate surprises, but I mean, why? Like, I don't know. I like when a film does something new and switches things up, but that doesn't mean like when if I were watching Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, I don't want an actual dragon to come through. Like, it wouldn't make sense in context. And just because it's an 80s film doesn't mean you have to throw ninjas. All right, sure. So like that's with Living Daylights and especially License to Kill. I guess my problems with the movies is that they're very firmly trying to establish this as more realistic, even darker, with some of its violence. But then it kept trying to pull out something so silly and poorly like crafted that you're wondering whether like there were two directors butting heads over the tone. And I just don't think they managed these tones as well as they could have. But they're still enjoyable films. Also, License to Kill, dope intro song. Really liked it. One of my favorites. GoldenEye S. Unquestionably one of my favorite Bond films. This is Pierce Brosnan, coming and swinging in this one. Kind of like Spy Who Loved Me. It felt like they were not going to try to do too much, have too many characters. We're like, okay, we need our actor, our female love interest, our femme fatale, our main villain, our secondary. Like they establish all like the tropes they need to do, and actually spent time developing each one. And they cut out all the fat. And there's no fat in this movie, really. Maybe like some tiny little romantic honeymoon type sequence. Maybe we didn't need that. It's not as bad as Casino Royale's, but whatever. But this is what I like to see. This is like Spy Who Loved Me, and like Casino Royale. I love seeing these kind of early successful Bond films in the actor's career because it's just something lean and mean about it. And I love it. I love when all the elements come together. It's so satisfying to watch. Where yes, like the Bond, the Bond girl is, I don't love Natalia, but I think some of that is trauma from having to save her playing the N64 game. The amount of times I accidentally shot her in the head, can't even tell you. What's up? I'll try to speed up. 20 minutes? Yep. My girlfriend gave me this thing. I know, I got you. This is also, Trevelyan is one of my favorite Bond villains. Absolutely. Like Scaramanga, it's like seeing Bond if he didn't have a moral compass. And I feel like they hint at his kind of character in that opening sequence because he's a bit more flustered and quick to anger than Bond is. So, but speaking of that opening sequence, that has got to be one of the best ones of all Bond. I mean, it's really well shot. They're actually playing with different angles. The kind of industrial music, fits. And I love that shit from the 90s. I do. I know some people don't. But I think the echoey kind of notes of the industrial music fits because they're in a dam, and that's what I think. I think metal. I think echoes. I think of those kind of things. I love the amount of shots they use. I love the camera movement when Bond, goes down that staircase. So cool. It's very clear. Hey, Deanne, how's it going? It's very clear that Bond and Trevelyan have a good, they've been working together. It's clear that the two of them have been working together for a long time. There's so much fluidity with their movements, and it makes, what we at the time think is one of their deaths so brutal. We've only known these guys for a few minutes, but we already want to see more because, they have such great chemistry and they operate so efficiently. It's a wonderful way to start the film, especially interesting that it would normally just feature Bond, but it's actually a pair. This is also the first film where, also, come on, you have to shout out that bungee jump, which was actually real and still holds up. Yeah, so, what else was I going to say? Yeah, great film. Yeah, and there still is a level of camp. Xenia Onatopp is basically screeching the entire film. Like it's almost too much, to be perfectly honest. But that's your camp, so you got a little bit of that. Trevelyan has this one line that's so goddamn funny to me, and Sean Bean just like his performance as Trevelyan. He when he's talking about Natalia, who now has as a hostage, and he tells Bond, like he's just taunting Bond. He's being such a jackass in a tremendously entertaining way. He tells her, he sends Natalia away. He looks at Bond. He goes, "Lovely girl, tastes like strawberries." And Bond goes, "I would know." And Trevelyan goes, "I would." I know I've mentioned this before, but it's so funny to me. Just great character dynamics. This is the first time we see Judi Dench as M, and I don't know who came up with that decision, but just praise to them of having M not just be your normal boss, which we've seen before, but being kind of like a scolding mother figure. I think was a great dynamic. Judi Dench killed it in the role as expected, and it also fit Bond as well because Brosnan's Bond is kind of like a bad boy. He's the misbehaving child. And having that paired with like the maternal M was just such a great dynamic because you're watching the frustrated mother who loves him, but she just gets so annoyed with him because he's not behaving. And it's comedic, it's intriguing. There's just great dialogue between them, and it brings up a whole new kind of relationship to be explored later. So there's nothing in this movie there's practically nothing in this movie that doesn't need to be there. All the action sequences are exciting and well choreographed. A satisfying finale, fantastic intro, plenty of memorable scenes in there. Boris is a wonderful henchman with a great look and charismatic performance. I could just go on and on about this one. I think this is I don't know what is the greatest Bond film or what is my favorite. I honestly don't know. I didn't order these by favorite, like, you know what I mean? Like, each row isn't really ordered. So I don't know if this video will say which is my all-time favorite, but GoldenEye is, I mean, it's obviously up there. It's at S tier, but this was something I enjoyed immensely as a child in the 90s, and on rewatch, I enjoyed it just as much, if not more. A technically impressive and incredibly entertaining Bond film that has really stood the test of time. Love it, love it, love it. Tomorrow Never Dies. I'm giving this one an A. This is going to be one of my more controversial opinions today. Some people think it's bland, or others say it's forgettable. I think it's great. Now, it's not as, it doesn't look as nice as GoldenEye. It doesn't have that sleek, it doesn't have that kind of sleek quality to GoldenEye. There's not as much kind of visual language going on, while GoldenEye was kind of nicely alternating between this shadowy espionage and more kind of vacation type settings. Tomorrow Never Dies I don't think it really understands what it's trying to do visually, other than just making sure everything's in the frame. But that aside, I think the story is great. It's very easy to follow and also interesting. It escalates at the right points. Love the villain. Love the use of media. Like Goldfinger, it makes sense that this villain would want to tell people his plan because he loves attention. He's a newspaper mogul, His catchphrase, which is delicious, just makes me giggle every time. I love it. Wei Lin is one of the best Bond girls. She is, she manages to be impressive and badass, but not in the over-the-top, unrealistic, modern way that we see with a lot of films these days. Michelle Yeoh is giving a good performance. She is actually doing a lot of the stunt work, which is pretty impressive if you watch that scene in the warehouse where she's doing all of that. And I like that she's not just like punching a guy out that's twice her size and then like the scene's over. Like, that's not her, and it doesn't really make sense. She's like a little Chinese woman, we see her struggle, and it makes it more impressive. It makes us want to root for her more. The fact that she's sweaty, the fact that she actually gets hurt, but this makes it more satisfying, and it makes her more of a realistic badass. I love that. I think she has great chemistry with Bond. His other love interest, much more different character, but still fun to watch. She has this kind of dark, tragic, self-wounding kind of persona to her. Something so death-like about her. There was this sense of melancholy. There was so much about their history that wasn't shown, but it was implied by what they were saying to each other and the kind of behavior that they had, the music cues that would arise. Like GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies is stocked with great villains. I love the fact that one guy nailed his audition by saying, "I'm big, I am bad, I am German." That's how he got the role. There's just like this wide variety of everything you want. You have like kind of like the nerdy tech villain. You have like the magnanimous, all the spotlights on me kind of villain. You have the tough, gruff henchman, and then you have Dr. Kaufman, who really kind of steals the show in the one scene he's in where he plays an expert marksman. And I just loved I loved how severe he was and his confidence. It was very eerie, that whole sequence. Action scenes are fantastic. Can't think of any complaints on this one. The motorcycle sequence through Saigon, the remote car scene in the parking garage. It's experimenting with restrictions in action. The fact that like Bond is stuck in a parking garage, or the fact that on the motorcycle he and Wei Lin are handcuffed together. It's an interesting thing. If you're going to make an action scene, think about how you can restrict either the environment or the characters to bring something new into your action. It's a worthwhile thing to think about, and I think action directors should watch Tomorrow Never Dies to see how to experiment with it, and just how to get like the pacing right. I think this is a gloriously fun film. I think it has the right amount of camp. Everyone's giving strong performances. I have, this is not even a guilty pleasure because I don't really feel that guilty about it. I think it's a solid Bond film. It's not as good as GoldenEye, but I think it's a very strong follow-up. World is not enough. Kind of torn between B and C. The story is a fucking mess. It is. It is way too complicated. There's too much shit going on. And I know I've said this a few times, so maybe some people think I'm just dumb or can't follow things. That's not it. It's just, if you're going to have a complex plot, you have to make sure you stage it right, set it up right, and don't just rely on exposition. And this goes in so many kind of chaotic directions that it's hard to really stay emotionally involved. For that, and for the often and deservedly mocked performance by Denise Richards as a nuclear scientist in booty shorts, like pretty fucking stupid, but whatever. Like, we'll take it, right? So I'm bordering on C with this. I also don't think Renard is that great of a villain, but I'm gonna give it a B because there's a tragedy to Renard that I appreciated, and Electra King is one of the best Bond girls. All I can do is sing her praises. I think the actress does fantastic work in this film, kind of bouncing between, a confident woman who's actually weak underneath, but the weakness was actually fake as well. There's a lot of layers to her. I love that Bond is kind of like, he can't handle her. She's too much of a firecracker, and she's smarter than he expects. So I like that he's really put on his ass by her in this film. There's some really, like, going along with GoldenEye and Tomorrow Never Dies, there are some truly exceptional action set pieces in this film. They border on over the top. Like, we have snowmobiles with like propellers. It's like a little maybe a bit too wacky, but the amount of coordination for a lot of these action set pieces that are using practical effects, I think, is very impressive. So I really love the action set pieces. I think, like I said, Electra King is great. I just think all the problems lie in the script. I do. Although the film does have a beautiful send-off for the actor that played the original Q. Look at this scene online if you don't watch the whole film. I think it is the absolute perfect amount of tasteful. It's just wonderfully done. Llewellyn, I think was his last name. Anyway, I had to leave it at B because I think the strong characters outweigh the messy script. So I'm gonna give it a B. Also, and it's just, there's so many highs in this one. Not only some like truly great villains, but and some great action scenes. This opening sequence, the action scene. Oh, I almost forgot about the action scene at the beginning. The action scene on the Thames River, I think it was, spectacular. I mean, the shot of Bond adjusting his tie, and this is why practical effects matter, because we actually see the actor getting, like thrown underwater and splashed, and we see the actor actually dealing with the elements in this scene, and it does so much to intensify an action scene just by tossing the actor around just a little bit. It does wonders. It keeps us in the moment rather than us feeling that separation with green screen and other excuses. So, fantastic action, some truly great characters, and a wonderful song by Garbage to start things off. That is one of the best songs, opening themes of the franchise. That song is great. I did a whole video about opening songs. I won't go into it too much further, but that, from visuals to sound quality, that song matches the plot and the themes spot on. So I can't give it an A because of its messiness, but I can't give it lower because of the heights it reached. Die Another Day, this thing's crap. I'm giving it a D. I mean, everything's been said about this thing. It got way too wild the way that it's CGI. The new Q, I love John Cleese, but he is no, he's not a good Q. It seemed like a great match on paper, but it didn't quite work out. The puns in this movie are going to make your eyes roll so much you might actually lose them. It's just ludicrous, and it's just the puns are so bad. There are certain sequences I like. Everything in I like the sequence in Cuba. I do think Pierce Brosnan is giving a good performance despite how silly this film is. I do respect the film having Bond get captured and actually tortured. We usually don't get to the tortured part with these movies, but I appreciate the film going that direction. But it only makes it more, I don't know, like hurts more after that, because you think it's gonna be a Bond who actually gets hurt, or maybe we're actually gonna get a little serious here. But then we have scenes with like rotating lasers, and then you have they have Jinx played by Halle Berry doing like a 100-foot drop in the water. We have invisible cars. We have a guy with diamonds embedded in his face. We have a guy who doesn't sleep with a electrified wingsuit. I mean, it's just, oh my god, it's so. I also don't understand how the Asian guy got plastic surgery but also managed to deliver a perfect British accent. Like, I don't know, it just, that whole thing I didn't like. The whole plastic surgery and now I'm a completely different person thing seems like a script writing cop out. What can I say? I think this is a bad movie. I don't put it at quite at F, because there are moments here that are good that I can't find myself hating the film. I think that's why it's not at F, but it's definitely a bad film. There's some performances I like and other ones I don't. Some dialogue moments work, most of them definitely do not. But the biggest problem with this movie is that it is straight up stupid. And it's really unfortunate. I mean, it's teetering on F, but I'll leave it at D for now, because sequences like Cuba, like the hotel, like when you see those Bond moments peek through, I think work. And I think they work better than the working moments in these other movies I have at F. It's close though. Like, it's close. The sun laser thing was pretty bad. I might change it later. Casino Royale, really close to S and A. The only reason I'm going to leave it at A instead of S is I really do not like the honeymoon sequence in the third act. I understand this is a movie that was breaking a lot of rules. Bond himself was almost a Bond girl in a lot of ways. He was very much sexualized, which we don't really see in a lot of Bond films, at least not in this kind of way. I do love the fact that this Bond is fresh. He's rough. Why aren't you loading? Okay. Just make sure I'm connected, everything's good. And this is still running, excellent. I love that this is a fresh Bond. He's a bit immature. He uses his brawn and not his brain. He gets chided by his maternal M, as usual. So I like that this is almost like a huge reset. And Craig, pulls that off. He obviously, put a lot of work into his physique to make sure those kind of more brutal action scenes were more realistic. There's actually not that much action in this movie, but where it is, it's pretty exciting. A little bit too much of the Jason Bourne choppiness to the editing, but I still think it was effectively visceral, especially the scene in the stairwell. But I don't like that honeymoon sequence with him and the girl. I think it's not corny in the way we normally would like with these movies. It's just a little melodramatic, and it goes on for too long, and then it culminates in a pretty sloppy scene where the building's falling into the water, and the girl's in danger, but at this point I don't really give a shit about her. It's just way too melodramatic for its own good, but there's so much good in this film. I'm pretty sure that opening sequence made everyone try to learn how to do parkour. Martin Campbell directed this, who also directed Goldeneye, so he's not as creative with this as he is with other directors like On Her Majesty's Secret Service or Sam Mendes with his later films, but he isn't trying to. This is a reset. We're going to just take these elements, like I've said before, we're just going to take these elements and do them well, not try to overstep ourselves, and just deliver like a good, solid, sleek product with some actual surprises in there. The fact that, again, like, Bond is being tortured in a way suited for Bond. I mean, yeah, you can burn and shoot and punch Bond all you want, but you start threatening his manhood, like, that is actually that's gonna hit him where it hurts. The fact that there's actually not a car chase, I would have liked one, but it was a it was an interesting way to take that sequence because we didn't necessarily need one at that point. You don't want this film to be longer than it is. Love the villain, Mads Mikkelsen, perfect as the eerie, kind of stoic character, but who's actually hiding fear. I love the desperation in that torture sequence. It's enough to make you sweat. There's a lot of emotions bouncing around in that scene. I mean, everyone's giving really strong performances. People were bored by all the gambling that was going on. I wasn't, because there's more what was going on between the actual hands being played that I found interesting, and I thought it was well paced. Great Bond girl, just very what do you say? It's just a super polished and for most of it well paced movie with just a bit of a dip in the third act. Love the film though, and I think it was a great way to start off Craig's run. Quantum of Solace. I actually don't hate Quantum as much as a lot of people. I think the biggest problem with this movie is, one, this was a writer's strike movie, so the screenplay really suffers. It needed to be touched up. It needed to have better stakes. I'll give it a C for now. It's probably, the thing is, yeah, the script is kind of bad in parts. While I do like the character work that's done in this movie, they're bringing Bond and M closer together. The fact he kind of becomes a rogue agent at one point. He's even more frustrated and angry than he was Casino Royale, which was an interesting way to take the character. However, Bond girl, not particularly interesting. The stakes are water will cost more in one part of the world. Like, yeah, obviously it's going to affect people, but we were just, previous films were dealing with terrorism and world wars, so this felt very kind of low stakes, and it didn't do a very good job getting me invested. The editing in this movie is horrendous. I have no idea what they were thinking with this. It's beyond Jason Bourne. The foot chases, you can't even see what the fuck is going on, and they keep cutting to other things happening in almost Oliver Stone, like an Oliver Stone kind of way that does not fit a Bond film. I cannot praise these action sequences because I can barely see what's happening. Too fast, too slapdash, way too many cuts. It's so messy. And then we get to the finale where a crazy French person's screeching and swinging an axe in a place that's made up of fire canisters, apparently. It's just dumb. I didn't like any of the action sequences in this film, even the one where he's dangling out of a plane. This is like almost teetering on D because it just kept fucking up. it kept messing up. But I actually did kind of like the villain because he's not in the action scene, but I like the villain for his lack of sociability. The fact this isn't some kind of cool, hyper intelligent, like smooth talking, confident villain. This is someone who just like hates people. He's icky around them. He's very much kind of like, he just wants to run his plans and be evil and be in kind of like in the shadows. But when he has to network with people, when he has to deal with anything face to face, he kind of shirks away, and you can see his discomfort with having to deal with people and having to kind of put on a facade. He doesn't enjoy the lie. He doesn't enjoy the facade. He just wants to be evil in private. And I think the actor did a good job portraying that. However, it doesn't exactly make him a threatening villain, and he's certainly not. So I'll leave it C. I enjoyed the character moments in this movie especially, and some of the plot elements, but Christ alive, like, yeah. Also, Fields is an annoying character. I really did not like her. So, I don't know. Good A for character stuff, F for editing and action. So we'll balance it out to a C. A lot of the action really did feel like they strapped a GoPro to a ferret. Skyfall, man, if someone didn't turn off my video already, they're about to, because I'm giving Skyfall an S. This is just a beautifully produced movie. I understand some people have some problems with the story. I do as well. I don't think we should dive this far into Bond's past. I think him being a secret agent comes with a certain mystique that the films should uphold. That aside, I think there's some very strong dialogue in this movie. It's quippy, but not to an extreme amount. You can tell actual professionals are working on this movie. You really, you have some of the cream of the crop of Hollywood working on this thing. Thomas Newman doing the score that utilizes a lot of like a wide variety of instruments that really gives us, the perfect kind of emotion for certain scenes, like when Bond's with a love interest. It's that kind of nice balance between, kind of romantic but almost a little melancholy as well. You have a kind of thudding electronic song with some Chinese instruments thrown in because he's in Shanghai. Of course, like the theme song by Adele, what a perfect pairing that is. Roger Deakins is doing the cinematography. This is the most gorgeous Bond film we've ever seen. It looks fantastic. The way Bond, the way certain scenes are actually like the compositing of how Bond is going into the dragon's mouth in a certain scene, or just how the lights of some kind of visual display are obscuring him from a hitman. It's a perfect marriage of the action and the visuals. They knocked it out of the park. And of course, you have Sam Mendes directing this with so much style, utilizing so many different kind of shots. A fantastic villain by Javier Bardem. I mean, come on, if you want, like, just like Casino Royale, Skyfall knows how to actually make Bond uncomfortable. Like, whether it's thwacking his balls or tying him to a chair and having someone like borderline molest him. Like, I think that scene where he puts his hands on his knees, I think every single person like kind of jumped a little bit, shuddered at that, because you'd never seen Bond in such a position. It's such an uncomfortable moment, and it's perfect. That's exactly how the villain wants to get into Bond's head. It just like sublimely matches that character's motives, how personal this kind of vengeance is for him. So, I mean, look, I could do a whole video essay about Skyfall. I could do a video essay about most Bond movies, but if I did one, it would probably be Skyfall, because there's so much great things to talk about, from its clean editing to its beautiful music and cinematography to Daniel Craig delivering a great performance. M having a great send-off. The scenes in Scotland made me want to go there. Love the variety of environments that we go to, from Istanbul to Shanghai to Scotland. It has all like the location skipping that we like to see in Bond films. I understand it's not for everyone. It has more of those dramatic elements rather than campy ones, but I still think this film is sexy when it needs to be, like the shaving scene. It's sexy when it needs to be. It's exciting. It's extremely, like, the dialogue is well written and is beautifully filmed. There's just so much good about this film. It's a great film, not just a Bond film, but this is a great film, polished to a mirror shine. I have some problems with where the plot goes, the hacking sequence, the whole I got captured because I wanted to, just like The Dark Knight, bothered me a little bit. But these are pretty minor. Skyfall is the kind of movie that I really, truly regret not seeing in theaters. Love this film to death. It's one of my favorites. I think it's just beautiful. I mean, and just the way the scenes lead into the next one, everything from editing to music to dialogue, it feels effortless, but I know how much work went into it. I like seeing the work on screen, and Skyfall has a lot of work. Spectre. I'm really torn between D and F. I really, really, really did not like Spectre. I'll leave it at D for now because I think elements are well shot. It opens with a one take, I think, is nice. I mean, it's I don't even want to talk about this one. Well, like, I knew 10 minutes into this movie, I knew I was in trouble once Sam Smith got his testicles in a vice grip. I knew it was going. I knew we're in trouble. It was gonna be bad. It's just, it's boring and it looks kind of like hell. It's funny. I never thought I'd say this, but the film is well shot and it looks like shit. I don't know what they did with the color grading on this film, but everything is like brown and murky and gross looking. It's so flat. Everything about this movie is flat, and I hate it. I don't like Bond movies being a drag to get through. Daniel Craig is practically in a coma. Christoph Waltz is underacting like hell. No one is delivering a strong performance. None of the dialogue sparks in any way. There's barely any scenes that really spark and like that pop up in my mind. Even the action sequences that use a lot of practical effects, which I respect, are just slow and plodding. And there's, I should enjoy them, but I don't. That car chase in Italy, you can barely call a chase. It literally looks like two guys like racing to the liquor store. It's so fucking boring, and I don't understand why. I think they got cocky with Skyfall. They figured, okay, we got to shoot this more like a drama, because Skyfall was a bit of a drama in places. But Skyfall had like an electrifying soundtrack. It had scenes that were really well paced and nicely moved into the next one. There's always this sense of escalation of movement. And this one is just like this flat brown line for 2 hours. And once we get to the ending with the how the villain's connection to Bond is revealed, which is stupid as hell, and how all the other villains are connected in such a slapdash Marvel-esque way, is downright insulting. And then the way he takes down the helicopter is just it's what words do I have? I don't know. I'm pissed off even thinking about it. I mean, like I said, there is a certain level of polish to it. It's certainly well shot in spots, even though it is visually drab, and it's very much a film confused as to its tone or what it even wants to accomplish as a Bond film. Are you trying to be the fun, are you trying to be the fun, corny, campy stuff, or are you trying to be like a serious drama? Because you're not doing either one very well. And the only thing I really got out of this movie is impersonating Sam Smith's failing falsetto at every opportunity. I'm never going to get that out of my head. So thank you, Spectre, for giving me that to play with at least. Otherwise, fuck off. And No Time to Die. This film has actually dropped, in my opinion, over the years. When I first saw it, I was closer to a C. Now I'm a bit closer to a D, actually. So I'm a little torn, because I'll leave it at C for now. I think No Time to Die has a bit more visual pop and flavor than Spectre. There's some nice lighting in the film. The locations are well utilized. There's some action sequences also exciting. Like, there's a whole sequence where Bond is being attacked on a stairwell by grenades. Like, that alone is like a really tense and thrilling sequence. However, this film also really fails on a lot of other levels. First of all, the thing is way too long. There's way too much crammed into this. There's a Russian character. I guess he's supposed to be sort of comedy relief. He might be the most obnoxious character in any Bond film. He is the Jar Jar Binks to Bond. And I wanted to reach out and fucking strangle him every single time he's on screen. He's not funny. He's not interesting. Why is he here? I was very unimpressed also with the main villain. I think they're kind of go for a Dr. No type thing, but he doesn't have nearly the sense of gravitas. Like Skyfall, the stakes feel very personal, but not in a particularly engaging way. Way too much focus on Madeline Swan. Way too much focus on other supporting characters. It's just, again, like, it's messy. Like, some characters are so campy and annoying and over the top, like the smiling henchman or that stupid Russian guy. And then other characters are very dour. And I know, look, people are different, but it's such a mix of tones and they're not blended together well. And by the end, we're supposed to be crying, and I'm not. I just wanted the end at that point because it's so long and laborious to get through. There's so much poor use of exposition in this film. And everyone was distracted at the fact that there was a temporary female 007, but at least they handled her okay. She wasn't trying to constantly show up Bond, and neither was the film. But The bigger problems are just the fact that the tone is all over the place. It's cribbing unapologetically from On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and the scenes it's being inspired by were better done in that film from the 60s. I think Daniel Craig is at his worst here. He is strangely flippant and overacting and raspy. This is something he's clearly doing as a choice. I don't think it fits the character, even with the things he's going through. It just sounds like he's portraying a different character entirely. Look at that time. Yeah, I know. I gotta finish this up. It's sloppy character writing. It's an unsatisfying movie to watch. Everyone was obsessed with the character being played by Ana de Armas. She's fine, I guess, but the sequence has some pretty lackluster shooting sequences. The film is, like I said, the film is well shot, but I don't understand, like, what's it in service of, really? It's in service of some lame villains, a romance plot that, let's be fair, no one really cared much about, and an ending that was trying to be earth-shattering, but it didn't really leave much of an impact on me. There are some impressive elements from, there's some impressive action in the film, but I think the biggest problem is that this is just such a chore to get through. Just like the song by Billie Eilish, her overly raspy, dragged out syllables that just maybe want to jump out a window and try to find an Adele record, because it's just too many characters, too dragged out, and not enough to really spice this up. It's, once again, like, it's frustrating because you see the promise that is there, but some poor character writing and surprisingly bad acting really drag this thing down. I don't know, like this. It's so frustrating. I almost want to give it a D, but I'm gonna leave that C for now. This one kind of hurt, honestly. I wanted this to be better. I wanted Craig to leave with a great film. I wanted at least one Bond actor to leave with a truly great film. I guess the closest we have was, like, Lazenby and Dalton, but they had 1 and 2 films apiece. That doesn't count. Too much. Overstuffed, and it didn't know how to do that stuffing right. No Time to Die was not a good film. And for all the, surprises, for the shocking ending, for the temporary female 007, I think that was just a way to distract us from all the lackluster elements that were plaguing this movie. From its very poor pacing, to its overuse of exposition, and to its sloppy performances and lame villains. It's not what I want to see from a James Bond film. And it's sad because I got to end on a downer. So that, I don't want to leave on the I want to leave on a dour note, but that's just the way it is. Let me just say though, I am very excited for a new Bond film, to learn about the new Bond actor. Who do you think is going to be the Bond actor? What kind of movie do you think it's going to be? Are they going to reset it to the 60s? Could be interesting. That is the end of my tier list. This isn't necessarily in order. Majesty's Secret Service is not my favorite Bond film, but I truly do not know what it is. I truly don't know what is my favorite Bond film. It's just too difficult of a question for me to answer. But I'm pretty happy with this choice. I think I was a little generous to a couple of these, but that's fine. I'll just leave it here for now. And I'm going to call it here. But thanks to everyone who watched this. Thanks to everyone on my stream. But I think this is fine. I would love to know, everyone in the comments, I would love to know what are your favorite and least favorite Bond films. Definitely comment below. Check out my other Bond videos. I have a whole playlist of those. And as always, thanks for watching. See you guys. I have to go. I think my dog is being bathed right now. But as always, it's so fun to see people stop by. And next time I'll try to keep the stream a little shorter. at least this portion. But no script. That's what happens. If I had to pick an absolute favorite, I don't know. either GoldenEye or Skyfall would be number 1, and probably Never Say Never Again if it counts, and if it doesn't, Octopussy would be my least favorite. That's probably how I would go. Dope. Other videos on the channel. Check it all out. You guys are great. See ya.